It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone, welcome to our first Euros daily live stream. How bloody exciting on the TradeMate Sports Betting Podcast. As you can see, I'm joined by professional sports bettor Neel, Shah, and we will have George Gamble along very shortly. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, just been a great day of football. England win, and then the last game just now was brilliant. So yeah, hopefully everyone's enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's been a cracking start to the tournament. So today we'll be going through tomorrow's fixtures. So we've got Czech Republic, Scotland. We've got Poland, Slovakia, and Spain v Sweden. So if you guys have got any questions throughout the stream, as always, feel free to send those in. If you've got any comments, anything you want to get off your chest, go for it. Maybe you've got some thoughts on some of the games yourself, some betting ideas. So feel free to launch anything you want at us. Yeah. So what's your thoughts of today's games, mate? I mean, England sneaking home with a little 1-0 victory there. Nothing that's going to make them too confident, but at least it keeps the fans at ease for now. And yeah, we've just had a cracking game finish up there between the Netherlands and the Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, there's probably going to be a lot of. I mean, I've seen just a bit of negativity around England, and we didn't play well, and why didn't so and so play, and this and that. But we don't have a great record in opening games in tournaments, and this Croatia team is a team in decline, but. You've still got a midfield with Modric, with Brozovic there, Kovacic, Perisic. These are Rebic. Those are good players, and that wasn't an easy game. So I think we're happy to have the win. It makes it easier for the last few games. We don't have to go into the Scotland game necessarily having to win that. And again, it's a chance for Southgate to rotate a few players. Put a few players in there, get some more legs. So I'm happy with that. We're not going to be sort of tiki-taka vintage Spain or like Kevin Keegan mid-90s Newcastle. I don't know what people are expecting really. You can't sort of shove Grealish, Sancho, like Rashford, Sterling, Foden, all like some kind of ridiculous front five. It's just not going to happen. So no, I'm happy enough. With the result. I don't know. What do you think, George? Are you happy with the result today?
Yes and no. Obviously, just first and foremost, getting the win is the be all and end all. That was the most important part of today. I did kind of, obviously, when the team news came out, there were a few sort of question marks for me. I understand Chilwell and Luke Shaw have obviously had to play a little bit longer in terms of the cup finals that they played in Europe, but I feel like having Trippier at left back, who's obviously naturally right-footed, and I don't know, I feel like it hampered us slightly. I'd have also liked to have seen Grealish given a go because, for me, Croatia, like I previewed before, that I think they were very slow. They're an Asian side, and someone like Grealish who's just going to attack you, just drive at you. We saw with Phil Foden, like he had a bit of joy down that left hand and right hand side as well, and I think someone like Grealish would have really kind of opened them up. It's early days. It's the first game of the tournament, so we'll still see these players. But it was interesting that, people are saying, oh, well, Luke Shaw and Shaw, they're very tired and this, that, and but we saw Marcus Rashford come on, and it's only recently that Rio Ferdinand said about Rashford, he should speak to Michael Owen about burnout. So if he can get on, I don't understand why we don't start with a natural left back in Luke Shaw. So that was the one question mark. I'd have rather have seen, even as a City fan, I'd have rather have seen Kyle Walker come off and put Tripp on that right hand side if it's for his set pieces. It looked a little unbalanced to me moving forward, but I think, or I hope that Southgate would have kind of got a more firm understanding of his side after that showing. And like I said, first and foremost, we got the win. That was the main objective. And so, yeah, next up, Scotland.
Well, that was probably the hardest game of the group for you guys, wouldn't it be? Or at least very close to it. So maybe he can experiment with a few things going forward. There's so many games in limited days too. So there's an opportunity to rest players and kind of give everyone a go ahead of where the tournament starts. And it will start very heavily when you guys reach the round of 16. If you assume you guys will make the round of 16, because I think you're playing the second in group of death.
Yes, if we win the group, we'll play the second one, so it could be any one of France, Germany, Portugal. Yeah, so it's I'd say get through the group, but then obviously naturally the toughest games are yet to come. But I think if we win the group and get through the next game, the next round, then you start to believe. But as an England fan, we know that can be disastrous, because as Arsenal fans, I'm sure they know it's the hope that kills you.
It's the hope that kills you, mate. Well said. All right, well, we'll get on to the first game tomorrow, fellas, and it's the other game in Group D. So we've got Scotland versus Czech Republic. So we'll get your insight on those ones. And like I said before, guys, please feel free to send any questions through, any comments throughout the stream. We're always happy to answer any queries you guys have. But just a quick disclaimer on the video for everyone. And for any videos on this channel, really, I or no one else on this YouTube channel is a financial advisor. This is just educational content aimed at improving your knowledge about sports betting. There is a risk of losing money. I can certainly tell you that through betting. And what choices you make with your money is completely up to you. So be responsible and enjoy the Euros. All right. First game, Scotland versus Czech Republic. We can go through today. I don't know if you know, Neel, but we can't really see your beautiful face, mate.
Yeah, I've broken the camera. I've finally broken it. So yeah,
what are we talking about? Looking at your camera, honestly.
Yes, don't look directly at it.
Yeah. Very important game here. It could decide which of these two teams qualifies from the group, because obviously you can have qualification from third place, and one of these two teams could knock off Croatia too. So Scotland with the home advantage here, plenty of Premier League stars in their side, McGinn, Tierney, McTominay, Robertson. Czech Republic the same, where they got the old West Ham duo there of Koufal and Souček. And interestingly enough, I thought this was quite interesting about the old Czechs. They have the second best XG ratio in the group. It's quite impressive, 63%. So for those who love their XG out there, go to you first, Neel, mate. What are your initial thoughts on this one?
I don't think it's going to be a great game to watch. It's going to be
great start, mate.
And
we just lost all the viewers.
Don't ever go into marketing, will you, Neel? My word.
Hey, listen, we're talking about betting on it. We're not saying it's going to be boring games are usually the most profitable ones for me. But I think it'd be good to get George's thoughts on this as well. But something that struck me was the cards angle. I can't remember, the name of the ref escapes me now, but I was reading, he's relatively inexperienced, compared to the other refs in this tournament. And I don't know if anyone, obviously if any of you guys are aware of sort of some of the incidents that happened with the Rangers game, with some of these Czech Republic players who played for Slavia earlier in the season in the Europa League. I just have a feeling that this could be a bit of a tasty game with the context of, it's a kind of, I don't like to say must-win game, but it is a big game. This is a game where either side, 3 points is going to make a big difference, and both teams, they've got a realistic chance of winning this. So I do think that's an interesting angle there. I think the card line was 3.5. I put it up on my Twitter. I can't remember exactly what the odds were, but I did like that. I think again, a lot of these games have been quite cagey. There might be a kind of tight start in there. I'm optimistic for Scotland. I think they've got a bit of danger there. I think especially with McGinn and Che Adams. they've got a bit of a threat, and they're very hard to beat. But then, again, so are the Czechs. I mean, that stat you're saying, that's quite interesting about the XG as well. I wasn't kind of aware of that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the match odds, I'm kind of leaving that well alone. But for me, the cards angle is something to look at, and then sort of in play, kind of seeing how things will go. But I think for me, it's a tough one to call.
Yeah,
I mean, as the odds kind of see, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the odds on this one before. So you can get about you can get as high as 2.9 for Scotland at Mansion, but I don't know what they're doing. But most people are around 2.7. Draws that are around 3.05, and Czech Republic 3.1. And it seems like, I mean, if odds checker is what you want to go by, it seems like a lot of the money's coming in for Scotland. So yeah, I'm not sure why the money's coming in for Scotland all of a sudden. Would you have any idea why that would be, George?
Loads of drunken Scots just,
yeah, what's the time over there? 10 o'clock at night. They thought we're playing tomorrow.
I mean, for me, I can see why money's coming in for Scotland. This game's been played at Hampden Park, which is their ancestral home. It's their first appearance at obviously a major tournament for quite some time. It's massive for them. And the passion of the Scots. I mean, I previewed this game elsewhere, and I said that the Tartan Army facing off against Czech Republic, but I was worried people were going to think they were tuning into a cloth review show. But no, so kind of, I was looking at Scotland. I mean, I understand Neel's perspective on the cards, and I think it's a good angle. I'm just not a fan of cards at international tournaments. I don't know what it is. Like, I just don't like it. It's very different to kind of club football. And it's very inconsistent, so it's hard to kind of get a proper sort of grip of it and a sort of a good understanding of it. But no, it's a massive game for both teams, but particularly Scotland. England and Croatia, obviously the worthy favourites to occupy those two positions within the group. But the thing is, third place could still be enough to advance to that round of 16, which would just be incredible for Scotland, and it's something that Scotland have failed to do in their previous two European Championship appearances. So the fact that that's on offer offers even more incentive. If Steve Clark's side can pick up 3 points at Hampden Park on Monday, it would put them in such a good position going into that game with England. It would just put even more importance on it, and it's already a big game. It's an international derby, if you like. So if Scotland get the win, it's going to be even better, in my opinion, and it's going to be a fascinating watch. But yeah, Scotland have scored the opening goal before the 30th minute in their last 3 games, in which they've won 2 and drawn 1 of them. So they're going to want to start well on that home soil. And the last 4 head-to-heads between these two saw Scotland scoring before half-time, and if they can do that again, it'll really obviously put them in a good position going forward. But yeah, they also ended their kind of preparation games on a high note. They managed a very, very impressive 2-2 draw away at Netherlands. I know Holland aren't the team of old, but still, for someone like Scotland to go away to Netherlands and hold their own and claim a draw, yeah, right, there was no competitive nature to it, but it's still a very, very good result for them. And they also beat Luxembourg as well. But they've managed to score in their last 9 games straight. And I'll go through the team news in a second, but I just think this Scotland side they're very underrated. I think they've got a lot of quality players in there. They've got a very good spine to their team, and I do think they're being underrated. So I can understand why perhaps some money has been coming in for them. In those 9 games I mentioned where they scored, Scotland have only conceded in 4 of them. The sides who didn't score, admittedly, were Malta, Slovenia, Lithuania, Slovakia, and the Faroe Islands. So no sides to kind of write home about of how great they are. But they've also possessed a ridiculous record at Hampden Park in terms of being unbeaten. So they're unbeaten in 76% of their games played at Hampden Park, where they've won 135, drawn 63, and lost 60. They're very, very good on home soil. And I just kind of think, with the importance on this game, what it could mean going into the next game, the fact that their fans are going to be behind them, it's at Hampden Park, they're in a big tournament. For me, I think Scotland are very underrated, and I think they could do a job. Looking at the team news, you've got Shea Adams, obviously, as Neel previously mentioned. You've got Lyndon Dykes. They operated as the front 2 against Luxembourg last time out, so that could be the case again in this one. With Kieran Tierney, Andrew Robertson, Scott McTominay, and John McGinn, they're pretty much certainties to be named in some form or another, depending on position in that starting 11, because they're undoubtedly their best players. But Billy Gilmore from Chelsea, he could be an option in that middle. But I feel like Callum McGregor will probably join McTominay and McGinn in that midfield. Looking on at the Czech Republic, again, similar to Scotland, they're going to also have their eyes on a position in the knockout round of the competition. So they're going to view this one as probably their biggest game that they can get a result in. Like I said, with that third place, a possibility being enough to qualify for the next round. But the problem is it's really difficult to know what to expect from Czech Republic. They're very inconsistent. The 1 minute they can be great, as we saw. They got a draw against Belgium in a World Cup qualifier back in March. So that's an indication of their credentials. But then they can have really poor results against absolute minnows. It's kind of difficult to predict how they're going to do. And they famously finished as runner-ups to Germany at Euro 96. So they do have pedigree in this competition. And they also made the semi-finals in 2004. So they're a side that are more than capable, kind of, if they can get through to that knockout stage, they know how to negotiate it. They know how to deal with it. So yeah, huge game for both teams. Also, interestingly, a stat that I love: Czech Republic have played out just one draw in the last 4 years. Like that's incredible to me. There's always a winner in their game, I think a winner appears likely here. So the first goal could be critical, especially as the side in 12 of the last 14 Czech Republic games, the team that scored first has gone on to be undefeated. And with that in mind, the fact that it's in Scotland at Hampden Park, Scotland tend to score the first goal, and with that in mind and the importance of this game, I'm leaning towards Scotland in this one. So obviously you've already mentioned Kufau and Souček, their certainties in this midfield. And Thomas Callas, who plays for Bristol City in the Championship, he'll probably occupy the middle and in the heart of the defence as well. But you've got Derrida. He's the captain. He's the oldest player in the squad, most experienced. So he's going to be starting there as well. And you've got Patrick Schick up top for Leverkusen, who's scored 11 times at international level. So he'll probably get the nod over Matej Vidra, who plays for Burnley, in that centre-forward position. But yeah, like I said, Scotland's excellent record at Hampden Park, and they do have some real quality in their side now. And it's an excellent opportunity for both teams. I do think it'll be a cagey affair, but I just think Scotland have that edge. Everything's kind of pointing towards them, and I think they'll make it a very tough atmosphere for Czech Republic. And the fact that the Czechs rarely draw any games, I'd be leaning towards Scotland here. So, I mean, the pick that I've kind of looked at is Scotland draw no bet. And I believe that was at minus. I've had to do American odds here, so I'll have to do a quick conversion for you. Bear with me 1 second. But I saw it at minus 107. So if I can just quickly have a look here.
193 maybe?
1.93, that's it. So, and I think that's great value because I don't see Scotland losing this game. So for me, obviously if they draw, get your stake back, but I do quite like Scotland to go on and win it. But with the draw no bet, I think that's a great shout.
All right, great stuff, man, and this is great. We've got a Czech on the live stream too, which is awesome. He's talking all about how good Czech Republic are going. Not really. He's mostly just downgrading them. He's obviously great midfield there with Souček and Kufal, but the defense might be a bit shaky there for the Czechs. Last friendly matches 4-0 against Italy, or 4-0 loss to Italy. Beat Albania 3-1, and had two good performances there against England and Belgium. So like you said, George, can be quite inconsistent. I want to go back to, before I bring Neel back in, what you said about the cards. Can you just give us a bit more insight into exactly like why it might be so inconsistent with the cards? Like, is it the referees? Like, because it could be a bit of a lottery as to what referee you get, or is it just the different players that might be playing and tactics that you're not sure about?
Yeah, it's a mixture of things. It's just the constant change in variables within it for me. There's some games you can look at and think, there's going to be cards in that one. But more often than not, I just kind of look at it and constantly in international tournaments, I like looking for players who I think have got a foul in them. So that there are a few, but I just think international tournaments, they're a lot more cagey because no one wants to give anything away. Whereas, club football, I just find that the passion is there a bit more, in my opinion. And, I could be wrong. This could be one of the most mental tournaments where the most cards are shown in this tournament. But for me, I just find it so inconsistent. I really do. And for example, that Belgium-Russia game last night, with the way that Belgium was set up, I felt sure, like, looking at it, Russia are going to commit quite a few fouls. It wouldn't surprise me to see a couple of them get booked. And there wasn't a single card in the game. And then I can't remember which other game it was. I looked at it and I was like, probably quite a low card count. And there was a high number, So I do try and predict them, and I get more right than I get wrong, but it's just so inconsistent. And for me, I'd rather kind of wait to the cards. And in terms of the actual season, and picks like, for example, the Scotland draw no bet. I find that looking at that motivation and the motivations into each side is more profitable for me throughout international tournaments, and that's the key when you're betting. If you're trying to make it be a success within betting, so like I track my records over the years, and I tend to do better on these kind of bets in international tournaments than I do cards. And if you want to be successful, you've got to double down on what works for you and obviously try and negate what doesn't. So for me, I tend to avoid cards in international tournaments and then get back on the cards once the season start again.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. And on the back of that, Neel, you have a card bet, mate.
It's actually it's a really good point that George is making. So I think sort of throughout the tournaments of the season in general, you'll find a style, a strategy that kind of works for you. That I guess sort of let's say your way of researching or analyzing something will pick out things that maybe others won't, and vice versa. So I know again traders who do quite well trading unders on games. They have a sort of real knack for trading unders on the goals lines, and people will do the opposite. And yeah, actually interesting, to George, the cards aren't something I tend to get involved with hugely during the season, but this tournament is sort of thrown up a few opportunities. I think like George mentioned. So there's been a few games where you think that surely these cards are coming, but it hasn't. Even like the opening game, I had kind of quite a hefty bet on unders, just from previous history. There haven't been that many cards in an opening fixture in any World Cup or Euros for since like Euro '96. But the public perception is, that there will be. It's going to be a sort of a tight affair, and there'll be lots of challenges flying in. But generally, the referee in that game won't want to cause any controversy. They'll in their own interest, they'll want to avoid that so that they can get a chance of refereeing further down into the tournament. So I think it's kind of case by case basis. So again, with the Scotland game, that was what was interesting. So so I'm going for over 3.5 cards. Forgive me, I can't remember the exact. I think it was 1.72. I think I wrote it in there.
Wrote 1.83 in here, mate.
1.83. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So 1.83. I do like the price on that, just based on the context of a little bit of history between some of these players and the referee sort of being relatively inexperienced, plus the Hampden crowd, is going to be pretty fierce as well. So I think it's got, and again, because it's going to be, the odds suggest it's going to be a close game. That's where I'm looking. There's another one actually which kind of combines. It's a double. It's kind of more of a long shot, but this is on McGinn to be carded and to score as well. So just a few stats for you. So he's scored 10 in his last 18 internationals, and in terms of bookings, if you average it out per 90 minutes, he's picked up 9 in his last 27 games. So I quite like that. That's about 15.4, I think, on 365 last time I checked. So that was a bit of a long shot one on there as well. I mean, definitely sort of what George said, I think is a really good point for anyone listening, anyone trying to kind of sharpen their selection criteria. Again, sort of, if something works for you, it's about marginal gains. I'm also a big believer in this kind of 80-20 principle. So I'll kind of dabble around in lots of different things, but if you have something that works well for you, you're sometimes better off spending more time on making a 1 or 2% improvement on that, rather than trying to try lots of different things and maybe those not quite working out for you.
Couldn't agree more, mate. And I like the angle here. I know George has said maybe stay away from cards in internationals, but I like the added idea of the rivalry between Czechland, Jesus Christ, between these two sides, with the whole Rangers Slavia Prague incident. I think that's another spicy thing to add in there, and also the fact that it's a really close game, and this game will go so far in deciding if one of these two teams can go through. So yeah, it could be
just
quite.
To clarify though, Just to clarify, I said I'm not doing cards because it doesn't work for me. If it works for you, absolutely play the cards. Don't just avoid it in general. If it works for you and you think you found kind of an edge or a certain way, like Neel, obviously with this, I think it's a great angle. I just know that over the long term, international tournaments, I don't do so well on the cards, but I do well in the other markets. So therefore, I'll put my focus onto that. But if cards work for you, absolutely get on them.
Yeah. All right, awesome. That was a really good preview, I think, gents, of the first game of tomorrow. Second game, we're moving on to Group E, the first ever game in Group E this tournament, and we have Poland versus Czech Republic. Oh, mate, I'm having a shocker today.
You're okay, mate. You're okay.
Poland versus Slovakia. So this game will be played in Russia, so neutral venue, I guess. Between two sides who are not really favoured to make it out of this group, or at least not favoured to take the top two spots. Poland's coach Paulo Sousa only took over in January, so there is a lot unknown about Poland at the moment, but they do have obviously an incredible forward line there in Lewandowski, Milik, and Zielinski. But a frail back line means that they could ship a lot of goals. Slovakia, on the other hand, not much better. If you're into your underlying data, they are actually one of the worst ranking teams in the tournament when it comes to the underlying data, lacking a lot of invention in the final third. Odds for this one, you've got Poland at best odds about 1.8, 1.81, draw 3.5-ish. You can get there at Sky Bet and a couple others, and Slovakia as high as 6 or a little bit lower than that. So if you're taking the odds here, you're thinking it could be quite a one-sided affair here, George. But is there any angles you have here for this one?
Yes, but price kind of dictates it. I mean, for me, this game is simply Robert Lewandowski against Milan Skriniar. I think that's how this one kind of works out, if I'm honest. So, I mean, looking at Poland, both of these sides are in a dreadful run of form. Poland in particular, they're in a grim run of form coming into this tournament. But this, as you said, this game is in St. Petersburg, neutral territory. But yeah, Poland's only win this year has come against Andorra, and Andorra, just with all due respect to them, they're shocking. So the pressure is on Paulo Sousa, I'd say, to kind of start with a win in this one here in this tournament. But yeah, the current team is built around Lewandowski. He's a reigning world player of the year. He's just insane, and a lot of people actually expect Poland to emerge behind Spain in quite a tight-looking group. But yeah, this one could also, similar to Scotland, Czech Republic, it could also prove decisive, as following this, Poland go up against an experienced and organised Sweden side, and then they play against a new Spanish side. So, the games kind of just get progressively tougher for them here on. So I think it's important they get off to a win here. But they've been held to draws by both Russia and Iceland in warm-up friendlies. And that extends their winless streak against top-tier nations to the best part of 7 months. They're not doing well. So, 38 million people, 38 million football fanatics in Poland are going to be relying on one player. And that's the Bundesliga's obviously most deadly striker in Lewandowski to help them on into the round of 16, and putting all of your hopes on one player. In times gone by, years gone by, Poland have had some fairly exceptional players to kind of complement Lewandowski and kind of help him out. But their squad's largely average now, in my opinion, and that everything's on Lewandowski, and if you can get that service. But yeah, despite those poor results, though, to be fair to them, in this calendar year, they've still managed to score in all of their previous 5 games. But the problem is they've conceded in 4 of those and conceded 2 or more in 3 of them. So the problem isn't necessarily going forward, it's at the back. Both teams have scored in 5 of Poland's last 6 internationals. But for me, I think falling behind here for Poland could be disastrous if Slovakia somehow managed to score. Because Poland have never scored more than 1 goal in their 11 games in the European Championships. They struggle for goals despite having probably the deadliest striker on the planet. They do struggle to score more than 1 goal. And yeah, none of Poland's previous 11 European Championship games have seen the game witness 3 or more goals. They're always very, very low scoring. So I definitely think the unders would be the ones to play here. And very briefly, looking into Slovakia, to be fair to them, they've progressed to the round of 16 stage in both their previous major tournament appearances, both the 2010 World Cup and Euro 2016. But in both, they failed to win their opening games, drawing 1 and losing 1. So a slow start might not be the end of the world for them here. They might somehow still manage to scrape through, but I highly doubt it. I think they're very average, but nevertheless, for them, they're used to being in this position. And similar to Czech Republic, they're so inconsistent. Since the qualifiers ended about, a year ago, their form's been very, very underwhelming. They've won only 2 of their last 13 matches, and that's within 90 minutes. And they've also dropped 4 points against Cyprus and Malta at the start of the World Cup qualifying campaign in March. And although they did spring a surprise by turning over Russia, but even in that game, their backs were to the wall. It was kind of slightly undeserved. So they're somewhat, if they're going to win, it's going to be a smash and grab, if you like. They're not going to outplay Poland by any stretch. And like I said, they've got Milan Skriniar at centre-half, and this can be his task to stop Lewandowski's. He is a brick wall. For Inter Milan, he kept 15 clean sheets for them this season as they stormed to the Scudetto. And looking at kind of picks, I liked Poland under 1.5 team goals, but when I saw it, it was 1.65, and to me, just judging by the fact that yes, you got Skriniar, but the rest of the Slovakia team is slightly average, it just didn't represent value to me. So this one was a no bet for me. If I was forced to choose a side to win, I'd go with Poland, just because I think they've got, even though it's not much, they've got a little bit more quality to them. And Slovakia have won once in their last 5, and so with Poland having that habit of scoring, I do fancy them to kind of maybe get a very, very tight 1-0 win over Slovakia. I see it being very low scoring. But yeah, for me, there was no value in this. But it wouldn't surprise me if it landed. I'm just not happy to get on Poland under 1.5 team goals at 1.65. If it was around the 1.75 mark, I'd probably have a go. But yeah, so for me, this one's a no bet.
Yeah, I was just looking at the correct score market. I mean, you mentioned a 1-0 win to Poland, and that's 6s. So even for a correct score, that's quite low, isn't it?
Yeah.
Neel, your thoughts on this one, mate?
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what George has said. I mean, I personally, I think Poland will edge it. I think a lot of these records kind of, in some ways, they're kind of there to be broken. And I think with Sosa, again, he's kind of early to the post. He hasn't had that much time. But I think what is in his favour is having this time now. So he's had those Nations League games. He's had a bit more time with the squad to kind of prepare, to implement his tactical plan. I think other than Milic, I think the rest of the squad is in relatively good shape, and I think they'll just have a little bit too much for Slovakia. So one of the stats on Slovakia, they had the worst XG of any team that's qualified, but they also conceded the most shots, I believe, as well. So you do get chances from them, and obviously that's an advantage. If you have someone of the caliber of Lewandowski, you could still win this with just 1 or 2 half chances. If you can just get the ball to him. So I think that's where I'm going with this. I mean, I saw to me, I think it's a big price. Poland to win to 0. 2.66 Sporting Index. I would personally take anything over 2.5 because I think they'll have enough on the day to get the job done. But if you wanted a kind of safer play, I think just a Poland clean sheet might be the way to do it. Again, or some kind of combination of unders, under 2.5, and whatever you like there, really. It's probably not going to be a high scoring game. It's probably going to be a slow start. You might even want to look at I mean so far I think 5 out of the 7 games have been 0-0 at half time. We've been a bit fortunate with a few of those, but at the same time there have been slow starting games. Again, I'm trying to think, what time is the kickoff on this one?
I could tell you in Australia.
5 o'clock UK time.
UK. So again, what's also happening again? The afternoon, the early afternoon, late afternoon games, generally depending on the weather. Again, that's kind of led to slower conditions. You can kind of see again, tonight again, the games that have generally been more open again have been cooler conditions, so that has a part to play as well. I mean, it's not going to be the game of the tournament. I don't think so. It's probably who knows? It might end up 4-4, but it's unlikely. But yeah, I mean, I'd want to have Poland on side in some form or another. But again, if you wanted to play it safer, then we'd put you off, let's say, draw no bet, or under some kind of combination.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I've just got up some of the correct score markets too for people who are interested in maybe going with a low goals approach, like you guys have mentioned. Poland 1-0 around 6s. You could go 0-0 at around 8 at a few places. And you can normally get some pretty decent liquidity on the correct scores on the exchanges and some better odds closer to game time. So, that could be some potential angles for people there who aren't too confident about what might happen. Maybe take some bigger odds, but don't listen to me. I'm not the expert. Why don't we move on to the bigger game in Group E, and that would be Spain versus Sweden. Cracking game here. So this will be in Sevilla. So we're going from Russia in the opening game to the steaming hot Sevilla. The two favourites from Group E go head to head. Spain will enjoy having these games at home, you would assume, against three sides who are not really used to these kinds of conditions. In Sweden, Slovakia, and Poland. On the other hand, Sweden will not have Zlatan for their Euros campaign, but it seems like a lot of people are quite keen on the Swedes to qualify from Group E, or maybe just a sneaky bet on them to top Group E. For those who don't know too much about Sweden, I don't know what you guys think, but they're quite a functional side, not very flashy, very happy to sit back and hit on the break. So you would expect Spain to dominate possession in this one. Neel, mate, I'll let you go first this time before I'll get up the odds, actually, to give everyone a little bit of context. Spain, very, very short here at 1.38, 1.4. Draw, you can get about 5s in a lot of places. And Sweden, who I can see here actually on a 5-game winning streak, quite impressive. They are as high as 10 or 11 there. So interesting betting market here, Neel. Which way are you leaning towards, mate?
This is something I'm going to keep a close eye on because, if anyone's not aware, Spain have had, a few cases of COVID with Busquets, who, would have been their acting captain. He's out, Llorente as well. And the knock-on effect of that is not just that those two have had COVID and they've had to be tested, but they've had to isolate the team. So their training sessions have been disrupted. So Luis Enrique hasn't been able to, let's say, get the whole squad together in the way that other teams have. And, I think that's quite a disadvantage. Also with Sweden as well, you have Kulusevski and Svanberg out as well. So, that's a blow, especially Kulusevski. I think Spain are a little bit short. I do think they are going to go on and win this, and they'll have too much for Sweden. I think the conditions in Seville is going to be a struggle for Sweden, especially in the second half. But I think Sweden can sort of make it difficult, at least in the first half. They play with this kind of low block, as you say. They are functional. To be honest, since I was a kid, I've just remembered Sweden are just this solid team with this kind of 4-4-2, this kind of, this brick wall that, you struggle to get. And that's why England historically has sort of struggled against them, because of the kind of game they play. But again, I think the Spanish team still has too much quality for them. What I'm kind of angling towards, I'm not really looking right now, but, on the day, again, I'll look closer. But if you were interested in the bet for this, I would lean towards maybe, draw full time. So draw half time, Spain win full time. I think Spain, in terms of goals scored, it's kind of a 60-40 split. So I think around 58% of their goals are scored in the second half, which makes sense, the kind of way that they play. Again, teams will generally try and sit deep, kind of frustrate them, and eventually they just get tired. Or they make a mistake and Spain will exploit it. So that's one way you could kind of look at it. Again, don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but personally, I'd still be wary of that line. Just, if Spain do click, if they do fire, and Sweden are struggling, or who knows, they're a couple of players on a yellow card. Spain have got the quality to kind of rip through them. We've seen that, with Sweden aren't going to play as kamikaze as Germany did in that Nations League game. But again, if the team can put 6 past Germany on any given day, that's what they're potentially capable of. So I would kind of towards that. I think looking at kind of second half play, seeing how the game develops. First half, how Sweden are kind of setting up. I think they're capable of getting a goal. They've got handy players in there. They've got Isak and Berg up front. They've got Forsberg kind of pulling strings in midfield. They're capable of getting a goal. I mean, looking at Spain, their recent results, they do concede goals. And against sort of some kind of mediocre opposition. I'll just as a reminder, just bring it up here. But again, against Kosovo, so they won 3-1 against Kosovo in March, 2-1 against Georgia, a 1-1 draw with Greece. You would say Sweden are a better quality side than any of those. And again, the match stats: Greece had 1 shot on goal, 1 goal. Georgia, again, absolutely dominated. But again, 2 shots on goal, again, and a goal. And then Kosovo, I think, pretty sure they had 1 shot on goal and a goal as well. So it's possible, if you were kind of feeling quite lucky, you could go for this both teams to score angle. I'm not really going to touch that. I think the thing that I'll be on is probably draw half time, Spain full time, or some kind of trading angle in between.
Yeah, it does seem like they're quite big odds for Sweden. They strike me as a very solid, what you're going to get kind of side. They're on a 5-game winning streak at the same time there too. They know exactly who they are, how they want to play, and then you're playing against a Spain side. I understand that the weather conditions will certainly give them an edge, but there's a lot of uncertainty around them.
Just to go back to this 5-game winning streak, they played Armenia, Finland, Estonia, Kosovo, and Georgia. So
they're good sides.
Like this is what I was going to interject and just say, yes, they're on a 5-game winning streak, but look who they've played. They've not played anyone with any real quality.
I understand that.
Too much into it.
I think I was just saying that at least you know what you're going to get with these guys. They're very solid. They know exactly how they're going to play coming into this game. And then Spain, on the other hand, there's a lot of uncertainty with, all the COVID stuff that's going on. Haven't really been able to prepare much. And they're going to have to dictate terms in this one, most likely. They're going to have all the possession.
You say that, but with COVID, yes, obviously you've got Busquets who's out with COVID, but Diego Llorente has since tested negative and is back in training, so he's come back straight into it. The whole squad's been vaccinated allegedly as well. And Enrique said, that's all sorted. We're raring to go. So it depends what kind of camp you fall into, really.
I think, George, so what I was saying was, I agree with that. In terms of just the players having COVID, I don't think that's an issue. They have the quality in the squad. It's about the preparation. For me, that was the mark in terms of, he hasn't, I think I was reading somewhere, again, he's had to have his defenders training separately, the forwards working on their movements in a separate small-sided game. So he hasn't been able to just have this whole squad cohesively together to work on what he wants. And he is a bit of a control freak.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what intrigues me. I mean, it could be just a kind of marginal thing, but for me, that makes me think maybe the first half, they might not be as kind of free-flowing. There might be a few passes going astray. People aren't as familiar with what their instructions should be on the pitch. That's sort of where I'm looking at it.
Yeah. I'll get your thoughts. 100%. I just want to interject quickly. I think it's just all if I had to summarize what I'm saying, it's all like the soft factors, I guess. I feel like are leading in Sweden's favor here, like the emotionals, like the side of the little bits, the soft factors, I guess is the best way of putting it. Like, I just feel like they're all kind of leading in Sweden's favor here, and at 10 at odds or 11 at odds, whatever it was, it might be worth a little pop, because it's not like it's a Spain side that are in unbelievable form. They've got all their players fit. etc., etc. I think historically too, they're not that great at first games in tournaments too. So there's another thing for you too. So I mean, I'm talking myself into a little pop at Sweden, mate. George, you got to talk myself out of it.
Yeah, I'm not with you on that one at all. I'm kind of baffled, if I'm honest. Like over in Sweden, obviously they're raving about Jan Andersson, obviously their manager, and they're kind of hyping themselves up. And it's easy if you just look at stats objectively and like, oh, well, he's got a win rate of 50.91% and he's doing well at the moment. But as you've already alluded to, they've not played anyone decent. They just haven't. Don't get me wrong, they're a good side, they're a good solid unit, and they know what they've got to do. I completely agree with you on that. But I mean, even history's kind of against them somewhat. They've exited at the group stage in 4 of 5 Euro appearances since their semi-final in Euro 92 and the 94 World Cup. They don't do so well. And they lost 2-1 to Spain in their only prior Euro finals meeting back in 2008. And weirdly, it's the same scoreline by which Sweden have lost both prior Euro games against host nations. With that one, so I thought that was quite interesting. But anything from this game would just be a bonus for their side. This isn't the game for them that's going to decide whether they progress or not. As they play Slovakia and Poland, who I think they'll feel they can get good results against. So I think all of these teams are resigned to the fact that I think, and they think Spain will top the group. But yeah, as Neel's already mentioned, Isaac, he's the main danger in this Sweden side. He's 22 years old. He's scored 19 goals for club and country this season, plying his trade for Real Sociedad in La Liga. But looking a bit further kind of into Spain, it's interesting. Obviously, we mentioned about the weather. For me, I think this is going to have a huge impact. I think obviously Isaac's going to be a bit more used to it. But what's been underestimated is Seville is one of the hottest places on the planet at this time of year. Even it's kicking off at 8 p.m. UK time. And even then, it's going to be around 30 degrees Celsius in that ground. And
here we go, mate. Weatherman's chiming in here.
Yeah, because obviously on my app, it's saying it's around 30 degrees or fluctuating between that. And still, even 25 degrees is ridiculously hot in, say, comparison to somewhere like Sweden. And I just think the fact that the way that Spain play, they're not the Spain of old with the likes of Xavi and Iniesta, but they still like to play that fluid football. They still like to drag teams around, exploit, positional mistakes. And I agree with Neel in that I think it'll be tight first half. I do agree with that. I think that's a really good angle because I think the second half, I think you're going to see Sweden capitulate slightly and Spain get off to a bit of a flyer, similar to how Italy did against Turkey. That's kind of how I'm envisaging this one potentially going that way as well. Spain they've netted 12 goals in their final Euro 2020 qualifiers. So they've got a bit of momentum, trying to win their third Euro title in the last 4. None of their last 12 victories at these finals have seen them concede inside the opening 30 minutes. So that they keep things tight themselves as well, obviously lending itself even more to Neel's angle. And they scored in 10 of their last 13 international games, and they've only failed against Ukraine and they played Portugal twice as well. So when they come up against teams of quality, we all know, as we saw earlier on, Ukraine have got some quality. They're very good going forward, but they're quite resolute at the back. And Portugal, we know their quality. So I do think teams struggle at times against Spain. They do concede goals, but I think given the fact how they're coming into this and their run of form, I think they'll be able to keep things tight against this Sweden side early doors, particularly as they haven't got, obviously, Ibrahimovic, who's obviously the main man for them. Not to say they haven't got a good centre forward, but you can't replace Ibrahimovic that easily. And it's the first time in history, which I love this, in the fact that this Spain squad's not got a single representative from Real Madrid. It's a completely new look side. Sergio Ramos obviously been told he's not in it because he's not featured much this season. It's just baffling. Real Madrid, one of the, if not the biggest team in the country, doesn't have a single player in the Spanish national team. I was fascinated by that. And interestingly, Enrique, you're allowed 26 players. You can take 26 players with you at these tournaments. And he's only opted for 24. So, I mean, there's some reports saying that he's chosen that because, no, I only want players that I know are going to feature and take part. If I have to, those extra 2, then they might not play, and I don't want that around the squad. I mean, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But obviously, we've already covered the COVID aspect of this. And, for example, in their last game against Lithuania, their final warm-up game, they had to play their under-21s. But, yeah, they've lost just once in their last 24 games. And the 2008, 2012 winners, they've got a brilliant atmosphere in their camp, according to Enrique. I mean, obviously, whether he's overcompensating remains to be seen. But if with the players agreeing with him, I think Spain are so up for this on home soil in a country like Spain, in a city as hot as Seville. I think they pulled Sweden apart, and in the second half, I think that's when we're going to see the damage for me. And kind of looking at it as well, they're going to dominate against Sweden. Let's face it, they're Spain. We all know how they're going to play. We all know what's going to happen going into this one. And Sweden, yeah, they might be in good form, but they do tend to struggle to lay a glove on better opposition. As recent home and away defeats, like to France, Portugal, as well as losses to Denmark and Croatia. And Croatia are a little bit static. So anytime they come up against someone with a little bit of quality, they struggle. So the bets that I picked out, I quite liked Spain on a -1 Asian handicap. So if they win by a single goal, we get our money back. Bet any more than that, and it's a win. That was a 1.7. I quite like that one. But for me, I notice this. I'm going to be slightly going against Neel here because I do see that second half seeing the more goals. But I thought over 2.5 goals at 2.08 was just a little too high in my opinion. It's quite a bit above evens, and yeah, I quite like that angle, particularly the heat, the quality that Spain have. I know obviously they've not had as we sort of said, the time together as a team and as a unit to go forward, but you can never deny Spain with the players that they've got. You've got Ferran Torres, he's been okay for City this season, but he's always excellent for Spain, and he's just got that knack of being in the right place at the right time. And they've got so many players that are going to pull apart that Sweden defence for me. So I think as a value bet, over 2.5 goals, they're going. It's odds against for that to happen, and I do see why. Obviously, given the way that the tournament is going and the heat, and obviously this Spanish build up to this going in, and Sweden being tight and resolute. But I do think we see goals here, and the beauty is Sweden are capable of scoring themselves, so that would obviously lend itself to it. And yeah, so for value, over 2.5 goals was a good pick for me. So yeah, overall Spain on the -1 handicap, 1.7, and over 2.5 goals on +108 as well.
Awesome. This is I've got the weather up here too. This could be my finest ever performance as host of a podcast. So 9 o'clock, Monday the 14th, that's tomorrow. We've got 28 degrees in Sevilla and 33%, humidity, some light winds too. So that'll cool things down a little bit for everyone. So yeah, that was quite a good little debate there. So we got George, who's going -1 Spain and over 2.5 goals. You've got me, who's from a punter's perspective, he's taken. I'm going to take Sweden. It'll make the missus happy too. And Neel, you've gone with the unders, I believe.
No, draw halftime, Spain full time. Right. Actually, but can I add something to that as well? So, going on from what George has said and going on to that bet is, again, with Spain, they lost to Russia in the World Cup. You have seen in the past where they come up against teams that can just kind of grind out a result. But I think this Spain team is a bit different. They're a bit more direct than they used to be. They're more physical with someone like Morata up front. And also, I think, if you're betting these games, you factor in that you can have these substitutions as well. So you can have, the 5 substitutions. So again, on the bench, they could have, again, Traore coming on, Moreno as well, Brian Gill. You've got options there to come on, and a few in midfield.
I agree, but obviously I was looking at it earlier and they're expecting Moreno, well, most players are expecting Moreno to get the nod ahead of Morata, and that kind of lended itself to my thinking in terms of the way Moreno plays, whereas Morata's more kind of hold up, flat track. Yeah, so it was that was my thinking. I think Moreno, obviously been phenomenal for Villarreal this season, just absolutely ridiculous form. And I think that back line, for example, Lindelof against Moreno, no chance.
Yeah, the way he's playing for sure. And I think this Spain team as well. Before the COVID issues, I was quite tempted to back them because I think they were kind of going under the radar a little bit. I want to see how they go, but look, if you're feeling confident on them, they're capable of pulling off a big performance in this group, and then their odds might come in, and you might find yourself getting a bit of value before the rest of the market kind of clocks on. The question mark is sort of when they come up against one of the better sides, Italy, Portugal, France of this world. How are they going to compete in one of those games? But the potential is there. What I read recently that Messi and Suarez on separate occasions this year have said Luis Enrique is the best coach they've ever worked with, and that's some statement considering all the managers they've worked with. So that's intriguing to see. If the players kind of buy into what he's doing, he can be a bit Marmite. He's kind of has quite strong views, and people fall out of favor. But I think he is someone who, if you're kind of loyal to him, he looks after you, and getting that kind of spirit in the camp. I think maybe that could be something to look at further down the line as well.
Love it. Gents, what a great way to start the tournament. I think this has been tremendous. I hope all the viewers at home have got something out of this today. And the good news is the fun does not stop there. It keeps going throughout the whole tournament. We're going to be on just about every night after the Euro. So make sure if you're tuning in now to not miss out on the rest of our previews throughout the tournament. But what way better to finish today's stream, fellas, than give your best bets for tomorrow? So I'll go with you first, George. If you had to go through all the genius stuff you've come up with today, minus that stuff about Spain, what would you give me, mate?
Do you know what? I'm going to go with those just north of the border. I'm going to go with Scotland, draw no bet at home at Hampden Park against Czech Republic.
Okay, and that was at about 1.839?
That was, bear with me.
I think it was 9.3,
So,
1.9.
Yeah, 1.93. That was 1.93.
Awesome. And yourself, Neel?
Yeah, Scotland game as well. So I'm going to go with the cards in that one. Hopefully it's just a all-out Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Few cards in that.
I like that. And I'll take Sweden at 11. I do wait till kickoff. They'll go out to 15s, and you got to take that too. Neel, and you wanted to say something, Neel, on the whole, crazy incident yesterday. I obviously didn't see it. I didn't see it live, so I'm coming from a completely different. For me, it's not been as crazy as you guys watching it live. So, what did you want to say all about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good thing that you didn't, to be honest. I'm sure. Look, if people are following this, if you were watching the Denmark-Finland game, it was just a kind of horrible thing to see. I'm a Spurs fan, so I've followed Ericsson for a long time, and he's been one of my favourite players we've signed. And yeah, I think it just puts everything into perspective, really. Kind of the whole world is watching. My missus, who has no interest in football whatsoever, she's never watched any of my things I've done for TradeMate or read any of my articles. It's just boring to her. But she, even she couldn't sleep. She wanted to know what would happen. What was happening, and I genuinely thought he'd gone, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do anything. I was just literally stunned. And it's I don't know him personally, do I? He's a footballer. He's someone I see on TV. I've never met him. I don't know what he's like personally, but there's something about that yesterday I think probably touched a lot of people, and just puts things into perspective, about what's really important in life. And obviously we were talking through this, and again, we're putting effort and dedication into this, but ultimately, it's a meaningless sport. There are bigger things in life, and I just wanted to say something really, just I think, with everyone watching this Euros, just to kind of just have that in mind, just kind of reflect on the journey you're in life. I'm not some kind of guru. I kind of wanted to just share something really, because I feel like it wouldn't do justice to not talk about it either, to kind of to ignore it. And those are my 2 cents really, just for everyone to kind of look after yourselves. It made me think I need to sort myself out and cut back on the Mackie D's and all the crap. Because if Christian Eriksen,
that's why you turned off the camera, mate,
yeah, this kind of supremely fit athlete at 29, if that can happen to him, it's kind of also a wake-up call to a lot of us. I can imagine there's maybe a few listeners as well, could improve their health a bit. Better time than any to do that.
Also, I think it deserves a huge shout out is Simon Kier.
Massively,
what a hero that man is. Player of the tournament already. The fact that before the medics even got there, he'd already secured his neck, began CPR, and then went straight and comforted his Eriksen's partner. I think in a moment of crises, you kind of see the true character of people. And it was remarkable to see that Denmark side, despite their emotions of it all, all being there for Christian Eriksen. You know, they crowded around him just so that the cameras of the media couldn't just sort of get an inside scoop, that sort of thing. Went and supported those that needed to support him. And as much as I was against the game being restarted, because I don't feel like they were in the right frame of mind to be able to make that decision. I get it might have been Christian could have messaged him and said, "No, I'm okay, go and do it," and whatever. But still, I just don't feel it was right to carry on that game after. But nevertheless, fair play to them for going out there and trying to get it done. But yeah, it was a horrible, horrible moment to see, and it brought horrible memories of a similar thing with Fabrice Muamba. And yeah, it's not something you like to see, but so you question it as well, that the amount of medicals he must have gone through throughout his career, and something like that.
Yeah.
That's the scary part for me, that the fact that obviously whatever was wrong. I mean, there's a lot of theories going around of latest sort of like, I'm not going to get into all of that because it's just hearsay, but yeah, it's very kind of worrying, really. But the point is, it comes back to that old phrase, you know, you never know, could be you tomorrow. So make everything count, do everything to the best of your ability, just enjoy it. If you're not happy with something, change it. Don't just slog it out, you know, do something. So yeah, I'm so glad that he's okay. Honestly, I was relieved, similar to Neel. You know, before I started doing all this, you know, I worked with a few of my mates. Obviously, I was a trainee firefighter. They were the main ones, but you learn a few things in terms of the medical side, and we all thought he'd gone. We all thought that was it. So I'm just so pleased that he's going to be okay, that he's going to come back round. And yeah, it was a scare, but glad that he's okay.
Yeah, that's such a great point with the medicals, mate. Like he only just moved to Inter, really, wasn't it, in the last 12, 18 months. So I don't know. Yeah, like you said, don't know how thorough the testing is, but that's to think that, you know, these are professional athletes. They've probably succumbed to so many physical tests, and to think that maybe they didn't spot anything. I don't know if they were looking for anything, but yeah, it just shows that it really can happen to anyone at any time. But yeah, beautifully said, gents. So yeah, we'll end it there. Bit of a somber way to end, but it had to be said. And yeah, best wishes to Eriksen and his family, and hope it all ends up well, and we can see him back on the pitch maybe one day. But I guess that's the least of their concerns, or anyone's concerns at the moment. You can find these gentlemen on Twitter at George Gamble, and he's so good that he's got two Twitters. At George_CGG is his other Twitter. So one's dedicated to cards and card spreadsheets, and the other his personal picks on all European football and the MLS. And obviously going great guns with the Copa America. You got a few sweats later today, mate, with the kickoff of Copa America. And Neel,
Copa, honestly, fair play to you, mate.
Oh, mate, obviously, Neel and I have subscribed to Copa America with Premier Sports Players, and mate, geez, you can type, mate, and you do some serious research. Like, I mean, you've written a bloody essay about Brazil.
If you're going to do something, you've got to do it properly. That's the way it's got to be done.
No, highly recommend everyone joining that channel for the Copa America, and you can find Neel at My Better Life on Twitter, and he also has his own blog or website, whatever you want to call it, mybetterlife.com.
Some great content on there. I took a read the other day. Some excellent blog posts there, Neel. Enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah, I haven't updated it for a while, so if people are reading it, I might actually have to get my act together. So good to know.
Classic. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Do a quick rate and review of the podcast would be tremendous. Subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks everyone for tuning in for the live stream today. And yeah, if you're looking to implement some of the strategies we talked about today, especially the value betting one, start a free week trial of TradeMate Sports. Gentlemen, we'll see you very soon.
Take care.
Good night, guys.
Got to get the outro video, so I'll just keep talking and eventually it will play.